The ground trembles. A ripple disturbs the water. That moment didn't just change cinema forever. It transformed the lives of everyone involved. But while millions know every frame of Jurassic Park, the real story of what happened to its cast might be even more shocking than any dinosaur encounter. Behind the magic that brought dinosaurs back to life stood a visionary who would change everything. Richard Attenborough wasn't supposed to be John Hammond. He hadn't acted in 15 years, and nobody thought he'd return. But Spielberg had a secret weapon. The role was written specifically for him, and what happened next would define a generation. Attenborough stepped into Hammond's white suit and transformed this eccentric billionaire into something nobody expected, a grandfather figure who'd lead us all into disaster. "Welcome to Jurassic Park," he'd say.
"Welcome to Jurassic Park."
But while Hammond's dream turned into a nightmare on screen, Attenborough's real journey was just beginning. What most fans don't know is that during filming, Attenborough was actually directing his own masterpiece, Shadowlands, flying back and forth between sets in a race against time. The pressure was immense, but that's what made his performance so incredible. Every time Hammond's facade cracked, showing the weight of his mistakes, we weren't just seeing acting. We were watching a director who understood the price of ambition. The role changed everything for Attenborough. After decades behind the camera, he suddenly found himself back in the spotlight. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of riding this wave back to acting, he did something completely unexpected. He used his renewed fame to greenlight projects nobody else would touch, becoming a silent guardian of innovative filmmaking. But the real shock came in his final years. While fans celebrated Jurassic Park's 20th anniversary, Attenborough was quietly making his last stand. His health declining, he moved into a care home specializing in dementia patients. Yet even then, something extraordinary happened. Staff reported that while recent memories faded, he could still perfectly recite his lines from Jurassic Park, especially that famous "spared no expense" quote.
Kind of biological preserve. Really spectacular, spared no expense. Make the one I've got down in Kenya look like a petting zoo.
It was as if Hammond's dream of bringing magic to life had become permanently etched in his mind. When Attenborough passed in 2014, he left behind more than just memories. The role of Hammond had changed how Hollywood saw older actors, opening doors for an entire generation of performers. Even more surprisingly, his portrayal influenced how tech billionaires would be depicted for decades to come. That dangerous mixture of childlike wonder and unchecked ambition became the template for countless characters. But while Attenborough's story came to an end, the rest of the cast was about to face challenges nobody could have predicted. And for one of them, surviving Jurassic Park was just the beginning of an even more incredible journey. While Hammond's dream crumbled around him, two unlikely heroes emerged from the chaos. Sam Neill and Laura Dern weren't just playing scientists. They were about to become Hollywood legends. But the path that followed would take them both to places no one could have predicted. Let's talk about Sam Neill first. When he stepped into Dr. Alan Grant's boots, he had no idea this dinosaur expert would completely change his life. But here's what most people don't know. Neill was actually terrified of the animatronic dinosaurs during filming. That famous scene where he first sees the Brachiosaurus? Those weren't just acting chops on display. The look of pure awe on his face came from seeing the massive creature for the very first time. Spielberg had deliberately kept him away from the full-size dinosaurs until that exact moment. But while Grant was running from raptors, Neill was planning something completely different. In between takes, he'd talk about his real passion, wine. That's right. The man who taught us all about raptor hunting patterns was secretly dreaming of becoming a vintner. And when Jurassic Park wrapped, he did something nobody expected. He bought a vineyard in New Zealand. 2 paddocks wasn't just a hobby, though. It became his sanctuary, and today his wines are some of the most sought after in the Southern Hemisphere. Then there's Laura Dern. Dr. Ellie Sattler wasn't just any female scientist character. She revolutionized how women in action movies were portrayed. But what most fans never realized is that Dern fought hard behind the scenes to make Ellie more than just a sidekick. Those moments where she takes charge, those weren't in the original script. Dern pushed for changes that would inspire a generation of young girls to pursue science. The real shock came after the film, though. While everyone expected Dern to stick to blockbusters, she did exactly the opposite. She dove into indie films, taking roles that most Hollywood stars wouldn't touch. But here's the twist. That decision didn't hurt her career. It made her even more powerful. By the time the industry caught up to her, she'd built something unprecedented. A career that could bounce between billion-dollar franchises and Oscar-worthy dramas without missing a beat. What nobody saw coming was how their paths would cross again years later. When Neill was struggling with his biggest challenge yet, it was Dern who stepped in. During the filming of Jurassic World Dominion, Neill was privately battling health issues. Dern, remembering their bond from decades earlier, became his strongest supporter on set. That on-screen chemistry everyone loved? It had evolved into a friendship that proved stronger than any Hollywood script. But while these two were redefining their careers, another cast member was about to become an unexpected cultural icon. And trust me, nobody could have predicted what Jeff Goldblum would do next. And then there was chaos. Literally. Jeff Goldblum's Dr. Ian Malcolm wasn't just a mathematician. He became a cultural phenomenon that nobody saw coming. But the real story behind Goldblum's legendary performance might be even stranger than chaos theory itself. First off, that iconic shirtless scene, complete accident. When Goldblum was lying there injured, nobody planned for it to become one of the most memorable moments in cinema history. But here's what most people don't know. Goldblum had actually studied chaos theory for months before filming. Those rapid-fire speeches about butterflies and chaos weren't just scripted lines. He was actually dropping real mathematical concepts between the jokes. But while Malcolm was warning everyone about dinosaur disasters, Goldblum was hiding something from the entire cast. Between takes, he'd sneak off to the hotel piano, practicing jazz standards when everyone else was resting. That's right, the chaos theorist was secretly a jazz pianist. And not just any amateur player. Goldblum had been performing since he was a teenager. The real shock? He kept this hidden talent under wraps for decades. Then, something unexpected happened. Around 2018, videos of Goldblum playing jazz in random bars started going viral. Suddenly, the world discovered that Dr. Malcolm had a whole other life they never knew about. His jazz band, the Mildred Snitzer Orchestra, became an overnight sensation, 30 years after Jurassic Park made him famous. Talk about chaos theory in action. But here's where it gets really interesting. While most actors try to distance themselves from their iconic roles, Goldblum did the opposite. He embraced the memes, the quotes, even the fan theories. That laugh that became an internet sensation, he started using it in jazz performances. Those sunglasses, they show up at his concerts. He turned what could have been a typecast role into something entirely new, a bridge between classic Hollywood and internet culture. The transformation wasn't just about fame, though. Behind the scenes, Goldblum was going through his own evolution. At an age when most actors start slowing down, he became a first-time father to 2 boys. And in pure Goldblum fashion, he approached parenthood with the same quirky enthusiasm that made Malcolm famous. He'd take his kids to jazz gigs, teach them about chaos theory, and yes, even show them dinosaur movies. Today, at 72, Goldblum hasn't just survived Hollywood. He's thrived in ways nobody could have predicted. From jazz albums to fashion icon status, from viral memes to unexpected comebacks, he's proved that life, finds a way. His secret? Embracing the chaos instead of fighting it. But while Goldblum was reinventing himself, another cast member was about to face a very different kind of challenge. And Wayne Knight's story after Jurassic Park would prove even more surprising. Dodgson! We've got Dodgson here! That single line changed everything for Wayne Knight. But while Dennis Nedry might have met a sticky end in Jurassic Park, the real story behind Knight's journey is far more fascinating than anyone realized. Let's talk about that iconic death scene first. What most fans don't know is that Knight was absolutely terrified during filming. Not of the dinosaur, but of the mechanics. That Dilophosaurus, it kept malfunctioning, spraying the toxic slime directly into Knight's eyes instead of his shirt. After multiple takes and several emergency eye washes, Knight discovered something that would change his whole career. He was brilliant at physical comedy, even when he was actually in pain. But here's where things get interesting. While Nedry was busy sabotaging InGen's security systems, Knight was secretly setting himself up for an entirely different kind of success. Between takes, he was studying voice acting, preparing for a career pivot that nobody saw coming. That's right. The man who played Hollywood's most famous computer nerd was quietly building a backup plan that would prove genius. The real shock came after Jurassic Park's success. While everyone expected Knight to be typecast as the bumbling villain, he pulled off something almost impossible. He transformed himself into one of the most versatile character actors in Hollywood. Newman from Seinfeld? That role came right after Jurassic Park, and it couldn't have been more different from Nedry. But Knight didn't stop there. What fans never realized is that Knight's voice became one of the most heard in entertainment, even if most people didn't know it was him. From Toy Story to Tarzan, from video games to commercials, his voice work exploded. That distinct tone that made "Hello, Newman" famous? It became his secret weapon, earning him more success than Nedry could have ever schemed up. But the biggest surprise came years later. When rumors of social media deaths and career endings started circulating, Knight did something completely unexpected. He turned the whole thing into comedy gold. Instead of fighting the rumors, he started posting increasingly ridiculous proof that he was alive, turning what could have been a PR nightmare into a running joke that even Nedry would have appreciated. Today, at 69, Knight has done something remarkable. He's outlived every stereotype that Hollywood tried to put on him. That guy who got taken out by a dinosaur? He transformed himself into one of the most successful voice actors in the business. The character everyone loved to hate became someone audiences couldn't wait to see more of. But while Knight was busy reinventing himself, the youngest members of the cast were about to face their own incredible challenges. And what happened to the kids from Jurassic Park might be the most surprising story of all, that kitchen scene. The raptor's claw tapping on the floor. Two kids facing down prehistoric predators, Joseph Mazzello and Ariana Richards, became overnight stars as Tim and Lex Murphy. But what happened after they survived the island would prove even more extraordinary than their escape from the velociraptors. Let's start with something nobody knew at the time. Mazzello was actually terrified of heights, not dinosaurs. That scene where he's getting electrocuted on the fence? Pure, real fear. Spielberg had no idea until years later when Mazzello finally confessed. But here's the twist. That experience changed something in him. The kid who was scared of climbing would later become a director himself, specifically because he wanted to understand how Spielberg helped him overcome his fear. But the real shock came during filming. While most child actors were treated like kids on set, Spielberg did something unprecedented. He gave Mazzello and Richards their own private editing suite. Between takes, they learned how movies were actually made. What seemed like a simple courtesy would end up changing both their lives in ways nobody expected. Ariana Richards' story takes an even more fascinating turn. That scream that saved their lives in the kitchen? It wasn't just acting. Richards had actually lost her voice the day before, and that scream was done in a single take. It was all she had left. But while everyone thought this moment would launch a massive acting career, Richards had other plans brewing. Here's what most people don't know. During breaks on set, Richards wasn't practicing lines. She was sketching, drawing, painting. Those same hands that frantically worked the park's computer system were quietly creating art that would eventually hang in galleries worldwide. While Hollywood kept calling, she was secretly planning an exit that would shock everyone. The paths of these two kid stars couldn't have been more different. Mazzello dove deeper into film, studying at USC Film School, the same place George Lucas attended. He wasn't running from dinosaurs anymore. He was learning to create his own movie magic. Meanwhile, Richards was winning art competitions in California, her paintings selling for thousands, while fans still quoted her "This is Unix" line. But here's where their stories intersect again. In 2018, something unexpected happened. Mazzello, now directing his own films, reached out to Richards about a project. The twist? It wasn't about acting. He wanted to use her artwork in his movie. The two kids who once fled from raptors were now collaborating as artists, decades after their big break. Today, at 41 and 45, They've both proved that surviving child stardom is possible, just not in the way anyone expected. Mazzello directs and acts in projects he's passionate about, while Richards creates acclaimed artwork from her studio. They didn't just escape the island, they escaped the Hollywood trap that claims so many child stars. But while these two were quietly building their new lives, the impact of Jurassic Park was about to reach further than anyone could have imagined. And the legacy of this cast would change Hollywood in ways that even Spielberg never saw coming. Life finds a way. When Goldblum delivered that line, nobody realized just how prophetic it would become. The cast of Jurassic Park didn't just make a movie, they started a revolution that would echo through Hollywood for decades. But the real legacy? That's a story almost nobody knows. Let's talk about something that happened in 2021. During the filming of Jurassic World Dominion, the original cast reunited for what they thought would be just another sequel. But something unprecedented occurred. Sam Neill, still running his vineyard between takes, brought a special bottle of wine to set. The label? A velociraptor claw. That's when Laura Dern noticed something. They weren't just actors returning to roles. They'd become a family that had scattered across the globe, each following their own dreams, yet somehow all connected by this one incredible film. But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember Wayne Knight's voice acting career? Turns out he'd been secretly mentoring Joseph Mazzello when the younger actor wanted to try voice work. And Ariana Richards? Her artwork now hangs in Jeff Goldblum's Jazz Club, a painting of chaos theory visualized through dinosaur fossils. These weren't just coincidences. The cast had built a hidden network of collaboration that nobody knew about until now. The real shock came when researchers started studying the Jurassic Park effect. They discovered something fascinating. After the movie's release, applications to paleontology programs skyrocketed. But it wasn't just because of the dinosaurs. Letters poured in from scientists worldwide, all saying the same thing. Sam Neill's Dr. Grant and Laura Dern's Dr. Sattler had inspired them to pursue careers in science. A whole generation of researchers, all because these actors made science look cool. Then there's Richard Attenborough's last gift to the cast. Before he passed, he left each of them a personal letter. The contents remained private for years until recently, when Goldblum revealed his during a jazz performance. Attenborough had predicted everything: how the movie would change their lives, how they'd each find their own path, and how they'd eventually come back together. Even in his final days, Hammond's actor was still sparing no expense in looking after his film family. Today, the impact of their journeys reaches far beyond Hollywood. Neill's vineyard hosts endangered species conservation programs. Dern's become a powerful voice for women in science and film. Goldblum's jazz shows raise money for arts education. Knight's voice work has brought stories to millions of children. Richards' artwork celebrates the connection between science and creativity. And Mazzello? He's teaching the next generation of filmmakers, passing on what he learned on that island all those years ago. But perhaps the most remarkable thing isn't what they achieved, it's what they avoided. In an industry known for tragic endings and bitter rivalries, the cast of Jurassic Park did something extraordinary. They thrived, each in their own way. If you enjoyed uncovering these hidden stories about the Jurassic Park cast, there's so much more to explore. Have a favorite memory from Jurassic Park? Drop it in the comments below. And if you want to see more stories like this, smash that like button. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next evolution.